Now, of course, as I just mentioned, the interest rates have gone up in the United States. Ours did too on Tuesday. The Finance Brokers Association of Australia says it's disappointing to see yet another rate rise. They talk about the real sacrifices that mortgage holders are having to make in order to pay their mortgages. Most economists seem to be thinking that the scourge of inflation is worse than the other issues. The Finance Brokers Association is taking a different tack on this. To talk to us about it, Peter White is their managing director. G'day, Peter.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Very well. A lot of economists are saying that, anything to stop the scourge of inflation. The Reserve Bank suggesting it may become entrenched. But you seem to think that the cost of fighting inflation could be worse.
Yes, that's correct, Stephen. And I think it's all well and good, and we all understand the reality of the data and the issues that are facing from combating inflation. But there's a human cost to this as well. And it's not saying that interest rates aren't going to rise. Actually, I predicted it would rise. And I agreed with where CBA was standing on it. But my issues are really, I think we need to stop and look at the impact over a longer period of time, because we're seeing the impact on people's lives, both financially and from a mental health point of view, are starting to really increase. And you can only stretch this rubber band so far in a certain period of time. And I'd like to see the Reserve Bank personally to have waited another month. And I'm not saying it wouldn't have jumped again. I actually would completely support the fact it would have. And there's probably another one this year still to happen. But I don't think we're measuring the real impact on people rather than just looking at the core data that was a few weeks old by the time they actually got to it.
Because I guess the real crux of this is, and you talk about things like mental health issues outweighing the benefits of the rise, and particularly given the point in time we find ourselves in, and we know that mental health issues are on the rise after the pandemic, etc., it kind of is a bit of a double whammy.
Yeah, exactly right. And look, one of the greatest impacts on people's mental health and their mental health in their personal lives is a financial impact, and we've known that for a long time. So, as you say, with what we've been through, and even the challenges through COVID, now these rapidly rising interest rates over a protracted period of time, people are having a real difficulty with it, and that has to be something that's taken into account when we're looking at this. And like I said, it's not saying that things won't happen, but maybe there needs to be a broader measure, a broader scope looked at this before action's taken to see what that real impact's like. But I'm concerned that rubber band's going to break very quickly now with the latest jump.
Peter, obviously you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. The interest rate has gone up. What are you expecting the banks and, I guess, secondly, the government to do in response to this?
Well, so what we'd like to see happen is, one of my great concerns is an appropriate level of transparency. And I think, remember, you and I spoke about this sort of thing through the Haynes Royal Commission.
Yep.
And the transparency issues, to me, are something that I find very problematic for people and will impact their mental health as well as their financial ability. And that is the back book pricing. So that's the industry term. So that's what existing borrowers are paying versus what the new borrower pays. And there's around a 0.5%, a 0.5% difference between the two. So people, are refinancing. The refinancing is obviously, that's escalating in this marketplace. People are looking for better deals, and rightly so. But they get attracted by this rate and say, oh, that looks pretty attractive. But then if you look at the existing borrowers who are already with that lender, they're paying on average 0.5% more. So that's like another 2 interest rate rises in our current language. And, that then puts people in an even greater pressure point, thinking almost with false hope they're in a better position, only to find out they're not in the long term. And this is a long game. It's not like you take a home loan out to 1 year. This is a 30-year loan obligation somewhere that people enter into. So, these things I wish government would ensure that we get a complete transparency on. Back in the day, we used to call them honeymoon rates. I don't know if you recall that, but and that's where the first 12 months was at a discount to the standard variable rate. And that was fully disclosed, and we all saw that, and so be it. Whether we liked it or not doesn't matter, but it was disclosed. Now, people are coming into a similar world, but there's this lack of disclosure. And I think it's very important that message gets right so people can actually make a well-informed decision. Because there's also all these cashback offers that the banks are offering. Come over to me and I'll give you $4,000 and look, I've got a wonderful interest rate. You've got to do the maths on it. It may well be the case. but you need to do the maths to see if that actually works out in the way you think it's going to, not just for the next 6 months. It's a long game when you get a home loan.
Peter, what advice have you got for people that are struggling under the weight of these new interest rates?
Yes, the first thing anybody needs to do if they are struggling is go talk to your existing lender. Speak to them what's going on. They have hardship provisions and specialised teams that look after you for there. They should be able to sort you out, hopefully to sort out any particular issue you might have if it falls into a hardship box. If it's more of a concern as to this could become a lot more challenging than what it's been, we strongly recommend that you speak to a mortgage broker. They're the professionals that do this every day and have got a broad spectrum of lenders they can talk to and act under this best interest duty. And of course, if things get really, really dramatic, and especially from a mental health point of view, do not hesitate to reach out to people like Beyond Blue or Lifeline and seek help. There's nothing wrong with that. They're there to help people, as is everyone in the industry, to get through what is a really unusual time. This is my 45th year being in banking and finance in Australia. I've never seen these sort of markets in the past. So it's a difficult time. There's a lot of borrowers who've not even been through a rising interest rate environment. They've borrowed in the last 10 years where interest rates have only come down. So there's a lot of stress, especially on young people, which is surprising in some of the data research we've got. People between the ages of 18 and 28 who are really finding stress and pressure and seeking counselling advice to support them. So they've never seen this before. So it's about all of us getting together and looking after one another.
They certainly are extraordinary times. Peter, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Stephen.
Peter White is the Managing Director of the Finance Broker